Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hispanic Patriot podcast, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location here in the heart of the great state of Colorado. My name is Nicolas Rasso, and without further ado, I present to you all our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez Ray. Give it up for the Hispanic Patriots.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to another edition of the Hispanic Patriot weekly podcast that we love to bring to you. Hopefully soon we'll start updating a little bit more often, but right now we've got a full plate for us tonight. We start with some pretty somber news, so let's get right to it. So tonight we open with some serious, something that cuts across politics, media, and the basic stability of our republic. Reports of an assassination attempt tied to the White House Correspondents' Dinner are not just another headline. This isn't partisan spin. This isn't about who you voted for or what side of the aisle you sit on. This is about a line that, once crossed, puts every American institution at risk. Because let's be clear, when political violence enters the room, everything else leaves. Debate leaves, accountability leaves, even truth itself starts to disappear under fear and chaos. Now, we don't yet have every detail, and in moments like this, speculation can be just as dangerous as silence. But we do know this: the Correspondents' Dinner is supposed to be one of the rare spaces where political rivals, journalists, and leadership share the same room, not as enemies, but as participants in a functioning system. That's in a perfect world, but we don't live in that right now. It's symbolic. It represents a country where disagreement doesn't mean destruction. An attack in that setting, planned or attempted, signals something deeper than just one individual's actions. It reflects a growing normalization of extreme rhetoric where people start to believe that political outcomes justify any means necessary. And that should concern you, whether you're conservative, liberal, independent, or completely checked out of politics. History is very clear on this point. Once political violence becomes tolerated, it doesn't stay targeted. It spreads and it escalates. It stops being about one figure or one event and starts becoming a tool used by anyone who feels justified. We've seen this pattern before, not just globally, but here at home. Moments where the temperature rises, rhetoric intensifies, and eventually somebody decides words aren't enough anymore. That's where responsibility comes in. Not just from politicians, but from media, from influencers, and yes, from everyday Americans who consume and amplify information. If you're cheering violence when it's aimed at someone you disagree with, you're not defending freedom, you're weakening it. Just to be clear, this represents the third attempt on President Trump's life in less than 2 years. Think about that for a minute. If you're dismissing it because it doesn't affect your side today, yes, I'm speaking to you on the left, you're ignoring the reality that tomorrow it might. And let's talk about leadership for a moment. Real leadership, regardless of party, requires drawing a hard line, unmistakable, against political violence. No hedging. No, but what about no selective outrage? The American system was designed for conflict, heated debate, sharp disagreements, competing visions for the future. That's not a flaw. That's a design. But it only works if those conflicts are resolved through ideas, elections, and institutions, not force. Now, there will be investigations. There will be narratives pushed. Some will try to use this moment to score political points. That's inevitable in this climate. But the real question is whether we, as a country, learn anything from it. Do we step back and recognize how far things have escalated? Or do we double down, escalate rhetoric further, and pretend this is just another news cycle? Because it's not. An attempted act of political violence, especially in a setting as high profile and symbolic as the White House Correspondents' Dinner, should be a wake-up call. Not just for Washington, but for the entire country. And here's the bottom line. You can be passionate about your beliefs. You can fight for your values. You can challenge the system and demand change. That's your right. But the moment violence enters the equation, it stops being patriotism and starts becoming something far more dangerous and sinister. We'll continue to follow this story as more facts come in. But for now, the takeaway is simple. The stability of this country depends on our ability to reject violence, not just in action, but in attitude. Because once that line disappears, getting it back is a whole lot harder than people think. And that's our memo for tonight. Let's go ahead and talk about what it means to be living in these times. I mean, what do you think, Nick? What did you take away from this?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I took away from it is that there's nowhere safe. This was the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I think that in popular imagination, this is an event that's typically for fun. We all remember Obama bringing Key and Peele on, the angry Obama. We all remember George W. Bush. I think he shouted out Ozzy Osbourne at one point. This used to be always universally fun. And now it's a place that is not off limits. It seems like every place, especially looking at my generation looking in, it seems like every place of safety and neutrality is just being taken apart piece by piece and place by place. And that in the future, there will be no neutral ground and no safe place for my generation to remember. The historical event that I'm most reminded of is called the Years of Lead in Italy. It was between the 60s and 80s, where far left terrorists started bombing campaigns and all kinds of terrible things. And in response, far right terrorists started to rise up, people who were dissuaded with local and sort of normal politics. And that's what I'm worried about. We are seeing so many people on the far left and the far right, more young people than ever are joining these factions and just saying, screw normal politics, screw party politics. Our voices will never be heard unless we force them to be heard, to be, basically have their face shoved into it. And I just want to say, to everyone out there, we need to keep pushing in legitimate politics. It doesn't matter how many times we get knocked down. It doesn't matter how many times that our enemies, or I should say, political rivals do something intolerable. We need to keep pushing in legitimate politics, because once we say, I give up on the system, even if you honestly don't have any faith in the system, I don't have any faith in the system, neither do most of my young compatriots. But that doesn't mean that you start acting that way, because there's something called honor and principles that we need to always have in order to maintain our country. We need to get to a point where we see our fellow Americans as fellow Americans again. You are my brother and sister just because you're part of the country that I live in. And I like telling this quick story that a friend of mine was with me, and we walked into a Mexican bakery. I spoke Spanish to the lady. She gave me some pan dulce and stuff for free. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it as long as I live, and I don't want any of you to forget it. He said, so that lady gave you that stuff for free and helped you out just because you were both Mexican? I said, yeah. And he said, I wish Americans did that for each other. One day I think we will.
Yeah, that's an interesting. But I wanted to clarify one point. You said the that your generation or a lot of them don't have any faith in the system, and I agree with that partially. I would say it's okay to not have faith in the system, but you need to have faith in your country.
Yes,
And
exactly. The country is not the government.
exactly, and that's a distinction I think we want to make sure our audience understands, because we are patriots here. It's on
Yes.
our shirts, Hispanic Patriots. So it bodes well. I think that people are paying attention, but I think that what I took away mostly from this whole thing is that how quick the left jumped in and started to discount this incident as some staged attempt
Oh yeah,
by
no.
President Trump to dissuade from the Epstein files.
Everything is a distraction from the Epstein files for
Yeah,
these people.
everything.
It's
I
like
mean,
a sheep buying at this
it
point.
didn't take them even 4 hours. I think I was watching some of the coverage because I was enjoying some of my basketball and baseball, and it got interrupted with this event.
Hugo's just trying to grill Hill people. Like he's just trying to grill.
Yeah, but the whole thing, it's just getting pathetic, really, from some of these people on the left that just want to come out and immediately, oh, that was no big deal. Oh, he didn't get near Trump. Oh, he didn't.
You know, just
Oh,
discount and discount. It's like,
this
well,
was,
when you discount so much, you wonder why the value is so low. It's like you
yeah,
got to take things seriously, people.
and I heard someone say something very important. If that attack had been against someone on the left, let's say Obama or Biden, what would we be hearing from the mainstream media?
Snarling and gnashing of teeth, wailing and gnashing of teeth.
I know exactly what we would be hearing. Yes, and especially if it was being perpetrated by someone on the right. If say some patriot decided to go off the deep end and decide that this is something that they needed to do to right the wrongs, because let's be clear here on the Hispanic Patriot, we do not condone any violence from either side. We can solve this thing through the ballot box, through the legislature, and electing the right people to get our country back to where it needs to be. But that's not to say that Americans that are patriots would not fight for their country if pushed to that brink, because
Right.
that's a whole different topic. So this kind of rhetoric is not welcome. And let me see. I had something here because they see, yeah, they attempted to report it as, and they put it in quotations, as an attempt on the president's life.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a small kind of this,
Yeah, I mean, this is, when media voices, it says here, when media voices, even indirectly, float the idea that an assassination attempt involving a former president, current president, and current political figure might be fabricated, it does two things. First, it erodes public trust even further, and second, it lowers the perceived severity of the political violence. So that's important to note. And shame on the media. I mean,
shame indeed.
Yeah, and then this, I don't want to give him any time on the air, but I got to say something about this idiot Jimmy Kimmel and what he said about our first lady, and trying to make a joke about the first lady has a glow like an expectant widow. This was
and what I really hate about that, most especially if I could make a quick point, is we already saw the prototype of this with Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk. And we see the attacks and the conspiracy theories against the Kirk family. That was sort of the first time the left started to trot this out. We are living in a time where widows of assassinated figures or potentially assassinated figures are no longer off limits. In fact, they're targets. And I remember talking with some of my far right friends who used to go on marches and stuff like this. And they said a huge reason why they stopped.
Up, you froze up on me. Little technical difficulties there. He's not a statue, folks. He's trying to get back on the air. But yes, this type of rhetoric has got to stop. Are you there? Okay, we got a little technical difficulty, folks. In the meantime, let's go ahead and go to our next story, which involves our former FBI director James Comey, who has been indicted for the second time. And by God, people are jumping off the cliff on this one.
All right, welcome back into Live Now from Fox. I'm Ryan Schmelz. We do have some breaking news to get to here. My colleague over at Fox, David Spunt, is reporting that James Comey, the former FBI director turned fierce critic of President Trump, has been indicted for the second time, this time for an Instagram post that said 8647. 86 usually means to get rid of or
86.
to remove.
86.
And then that was followed by the numbers 47, linked possibly to President Trump, the 47th president of the United States. Comey came under intense scrutiny for doing that. We had heard that there might be rumblings the DOJ was looking into him. And now David Spunt is reporting that James Comey, the former FBI director, has been indicted for a second time by the Department of Justice, this time for that 8647 post on Instagram.
Yeah. And this is, this is another story that the media is trying to downplay and say, oh, James Comey didn't know anything about what 8647 meant.
Yeah, come on. Like, even someone my age knows what 86 means. Quick apology to everybody. Just a quick blurb on the internet. Just to quickly finish what I was saying is that they go after the women and children nowadays. There's no safe people. There's no off limits. And we saw that now with James Comey, who literally said this against his boss. Now, let me ask you all a question. If you implied that you wanted people to kill your boss, how long would you keep that job? Just how long would you keep that job? You'd be fired immediately, probably put on a police registry.
I think the most absurd thing that I heard one journalist say is that James Comey somehow didn't know what 8647 meant. Okay.
What else could it mean? I mean, that's the biggest thing. Literally, what is he posting lottery numbers?
Okay, we're talking about the former director of the FBI here. If the former director of the FBI doesn't understand the meaning of 86 followed by 47, then we have a more serious problem here than I ever thought, because that is clear. 86 means to eliminate in any jargon, especially illegal jargon. And he meant every way possible what he was saying. He was just trying to play innocent. Oh, look what I found on the beach. A shell formation outlining the numbers 8647. So give me a break. Okay. This is beyond ridiculous. And he's been indicted, and for some of you out there that don't know, he's been indicted on in a eastern North Carolina district. It's not he was not indicted in DC like some are falsely reporting, because if he was indicted in DC, then we know how biased that jury pool would be, and how it would be nearly impossible to even get a trial, and much less a conviction. So this is just one of many things that James Comey is guilty of, and we will use the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. But this guy has been involved in some very nefarious things while he was director of the FBI, and while he was and after he was fired and left the FBI, because that was part of his comeback. But yeah, he was just walking down the beach and he magically stumbled upon a formation of seashells that spelled out 8647.
Yeah, he wasn't walking down the beach with a pocket full of shells, as it turns out. But Hugo, I wanted to ask you. In my generation, do you know what we call this kind of thing? What James Comey posted? We call
What's
it
that?
Fed posting. We call it Fed posting. It's basically something you'd post online that seems almost deliberately intended to incite a federal investigation. You know what I mean? It's just a very stupid, completely undecorum level. It's he knew exactly what he was doing. And you know what the thing is? If he didn't, then why was this moron the head of the FBI? You got two bad decisions here.
He's as the term goes, he's crazy like a fox. He thinks that he's smarter than everyone else and that he was going to be untouchable, because here's what I think he was thinking. He was thinking that if he gets indicted, it would be in the District of Columbia, where it would be virtually impossible to prosecute him and or convict him. But the DOJ outsmarted him and they indicted him in the Eastern District of North Carolina. So, sorry, Mr. Comey, but you are now in a red state with your indictment, and you will be prosecuted.
And you deserve it.
Yeah, he deserves that and more. And this isn't the end of it either. There's more coming. I feel there's going to be more indictments coming for James Comey because of some of the things that he did. The Russia hoax, all the other incidents that he fomented. Remember the Hillary Clinton thing, where he came on a press conference and says no reasonable prosecutor would indict or prosecute this. It was very clear that Hillary Clinton had stolen classified documents and shared them on a unsecure server. Then she bashed data equipment and hard drives and bleach bit, and
the whole bit.
I mean, who in the world gets away with that except for Democrats?
That's the thing that I think a lot of people lose hope over. Is it's like, well, I have to be perfect in order to just survive, whereas these guys can make as many mistakes and Fed posts and just absurd statements as possible, and nothing happens to them. But I do agree with you, Hugo.
Let me correct you.
Does have his second term.
Hold on. Well, let me correct you just one second. A mistake is something you do unintentionally. These things were done intentionally. Those are not mistakes. Those are
very
criminal.
True.
Those are criminal acts.
Oh, no, yeah. I would never imply that James Comey is making mistakes. He's making this entirely intentionally. And that's sort of the frustration, is that these people can do things deliberately, whereas Republicans make mistakes and their entire lives get ruined. It's not fair. It's not right. And if there's anything that we really care about, it's fairness and honor on this show. This is very much Hispanic values. We care about people being treated fairly and an honor-based culture being implemented. We need people to lose reputation and never have any work ever again in government when they do ridiculous things like imply that someone should kill the president while being the former FBI director. That is beyond the pale.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. He thought that he was going to be a kind of a slick guy and just basically get away with it because of who he is and where he thought he might get prosecuted. But the DOJ outsmarted him. Yeah. So he's not so bright. All right, let's move on to.
Oh, really?
Let's move on to something that we've been talking about recently, and that was here in Colorado, the Proposition 108 controversy, where the federal court ruled a portion of that proposition unconstitutional, and that was the provision where it required a party to vote by the body of the party, meaning their central committee, to votes that have a 75% threshold that they had to clear in order to opt out of their open primary. Well, that portion of the law has been ruled unconstitutional now. So therefore, every vote that the state Republican Central Committee has taken has been 60% or more on this issue. So what happened is the state executive committee got together and decided to try to push, the idea that that we should request or file an injunction with the Secretary of State. Oh my God, Jenna Griswold, and to order her to not send Republican primary ballots to unaffiliated or non-Republicans. Okay, so that part, of course, was adjudicated at the Assembly, as you remember, and then
I do.
The Executive Committee voted to move forward and have that done, and so it was done. The injunction was filed, and then lo and behold, the elected representatives, the delegation of Colorado, decided to oppose that. And they had the former attorney of the state party, Chris Murray, who is a rhino in and of himself. He's a smart guy, but he's definitely on the wrong side of the issues with regards to this. And they filed a motion with the court asking the court to not grant that injunction. So a ruling came out the other day, and it basically and they denied the injunction. So the next motion, or it's still up in the air whether this is final or not. So we're not going to comment too much on it. We just want to say that I personally thought that what those elected representatives did was despicable, and I am personally going to call for the primary of each and every one of those representatives. So this has got to stop. This nonsense that people who we elected are going to turn around and dictate to our body that we can't do what we feel is right is beyond the pale. So
it really is. It was something that actually really upset me as well, because to me, the elected representatives should be 100% for the people. And the state party central committee, the body of the party, this is sort of the first, the front line of the people. These are the people who elected you. The only argument I've been seeing a lot of as well, these are the people who know how to win elections. And full respect to our representatives who fight on Capitol Hill every day. But some of these people are in red districts. Lauren Boebert had to move districts in order, perhaps in order to win. That's an argument, but that's an argument people have made against her as well. You had to move districts to get elected. So who are you to say that, our way of doing things is wrong? But I think at the end of the day, the representatives are not nobles. They're not monarchs. They're not people who are in charge of us inherently. We are their bosses, not the other way around. And I don't see that attitude at the forefront when they make statements like this. I'm very sorry to say it.
I hope that they rue the day they pull this stunt, because out of the four, only one lived in a quasi blue district. Okay. And that's Gabe Evans. The other three lived in safe red districts for the most part. Okay. Now, some may argue about CD3, but the bottom line is that we have people who are elected in mostly red districts coming out and dictating to the state party, the body of the party, who are elected representatives of the people, to make decisions. And they took it upon themselves to basically say, no, we know better than you do. and we're going to pull this little stunt. Well, I hope it backfires big time, and I hope every one of them is out of office on the next opportunity.
Yeah, and that's very sad because honestly, we see things the way they are right now. This could be a hard midterm. I mean, we have $4 gas. We have our local representatives going against the body of the party. That body needs to donate. That body needs to volunteer. And if you're spitting in their face during what might be a very difficult election year, it makes me wonder how much they consider Republicans to be the people that keep them in office. And maybe that is a motivation for them wanting unaffiliateds in primaries and to be engaging with them. But this is not the way to do it. This is really not the way to do it. And I'm sad that it'll backfire on them because we'll probably going to lose seats for that if we don't get our house in order.
Mr. Hurd is not out of the woods. There is a challenger.
Yep, he couldn't beat that.
Mr. Ron Hanks. So hopefully the people in CD3 will see through this and boot Mr. Hurd to the curb. So
there you go, Hurd to the curb. And shout out to our good friend Hope Scheppelman, who has a job in the White House. She's well deserved.
Yes.
And she really showed her integrity with a lot of things, as well as Dave Williams, who is now whose boss is now Marco Rubio. So we're very happy for our friends in the administration. Look forward to the work that they do.
By the way, did we just create a bumper sticker?
Hurd to the curb. Hurd to the curb. There we go, folks. If you want to pick it up, let us know. We'll start producing. And let us know if you actually want a T-shirt. Let us know if you want a T-shirt. If there's enough interest, we definitely will start a merch store. We can do that. And while you're at it, why don't you take a moment to subscribe to the Hispanic Patriot podcast? If you're new here, drop us a like, share with your friends, especially
hit like, hit subscribe, follow us, and definitely please consider donating to this cause, because every dollar that you can contribute will help get our message out even further and more efficiently. So please consider a donation to our party.
Yes,
to our podcast.
If we will have a Hispanic Patriot party. We have a couple events that we will be advertising later in the show. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss a minute of the show.
All right. So another little tidbit involving the executive committee was something that came out of CD3, of all places. CD3 seems to be a quagmire, almost like Weld County, but
they can't CD3 through the trees.
Yeah. Apparently, at the CD3 assembly, the powers that be, that include your usual suspects down there, decided that they were going to try to block, or that they would block Mr. Stephen Varela from being nominated for the State Board of Education. He had to step out of the room temporarily because of a phone call from his wife. And when he tried to go back in, the police and other security people blocked him from going back in.
How do you like that?
Yeah. And one of the officers told Mr. Varela directly, they don't want you here. They, meaning the Republican Party, the CD3 officials. That was a total violation. Anyway, fast forward, Mr. Varela filed a controversy and requested the state executive committee to review and rule on it. And we did that last night. And the body ruled that Mr. Varela should be placed on the ballot. It doesn't guarantee that, because this also involves Jenna Griswold. So we sent the directive, and hopefully he gets on the ballot, but that's not a guarantee. So we'll probably know by tomorrow, because that's the deadline. But he was definitely railroaded. What they did was despicable. And I think those people need to be removed from office. And that includes our illustrious National Committee woman, Miss Chrissy Fedura, from down there. She's also the vice chair of CD3. Go figure.
And there's interesting. There's a lot of figures in CD3. Russ Andrews came out of CD3. Not only Stephen, Ron Hanks, James Wiley, who you may be seeing an interview with soon. We hope so. We've invited him on. But there's a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people in CD3, and we need to get that district back in line. Cleaned up. Yep. So hopefully Mr. Varela ends up by next week. We should be able to report if he was successful.
Indeed. So keep a lookout for that.
And we had a little more other news that came out, and this is some national news in case you haven't heard. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in the Louisiana case where redistricting had been done based on racial lines, and that was wrong. The minute I heard about that, I was, well, who was it that said that he hoped that people would be judged by the color of their skin, judged by the character and not the color of their skin? That was Martin Luther King.
It was. And emphasis on was, because that idea apparently has been flushed down the toilet, very unfortunately so, in so many places. Can you believe that? A racially based system of that. It's like, why not just go the whole hog and be honest about it, folks? But apparently this is where we're at.
So let's listen in real quick on that decision.
I do want to get to some breaking news with the Supreme Court, and I did want to share this with you right here. The breaking news that the Supreme Court has struck down a majority black congressional district in Louisiana, weakening a landmark voting rights law's protection against discrimination in redistricting. And I did want to share just a little bit more information as we continue to follow this breaking news coming as we were sharing that live hearing with you with Secretary Hegseth. The Supreme Court limiting the scope of a key Voting Rights Act provision that restricts how states draw districts affecting minority voters, constraining states' use of race as a factor when drawing congressional maps ahead of the 2026 midterms. Justices for the 6-3 majority ruled that Louisiana's newly redrawn congressional map, which created a second majority black district, constituted an illegal racial gerrymander. The justices did acknowledge that compliance with the Voting Rights Act can be compelling interest for states, but they ruled that it did not require Louisiana to create the new map with a second majority black district. Compliance with Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, quote, as properly construed, can provide such a reason. That is what Justice Samuel Alito wrote for the majority, saying, quote, correctly understood, Section 2 does not impose liability at odds with the Constitution, and it should not have imposed liability on Louisiana for its 2022 map. Adding compliance with Section 2 thus could not justify the state's use of race-based redistricting here. While the ruling does not overturn the Voting Rights Act or Section 2, it is likely to narrow how minority representation influences multiple states' congressional maps and trigger a new wave of legal challenges over congressional boundaries. That case was first argued last March before the Supreme Court and centered on whether Louisiana's 2024 congressional map, which had added a second majority black district, amounted to an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. So we are continuing to follow the very latest developments, and we also have this from Chad Pergram saying, from colleagues Shannon Bream and Bill Mears, the Supreme Court has tossed out a revised Louisiana congressional map that added a second black majority district, a voting rights ruling that could have major political and social implications in future federal elections. The timing of the 6-3 decision along ideological lines authored by Justice Samuel Alito, which we did quote right there, may limit impact on other redistricting efforts in a time to affect the November midterms, with several states already beginning early primary voting. And I also wanted to share this with you as we are also continuing to watch other rulings from the Supreme Court. These are just three main points right here that we wanted to bring to you. The first is that the court unanimously sided with faith-based pregnancy center, challenging a New Jersey investigation of its practices. As we also mentioned, the court ruled Louisiana's congressional district is unconstitutional, gerrymander limiting a key tool of the Voting Rights Act. And also the court will hear arguments today on ending legal protections for Haitian and Syrian migrants. We do want to get to some breaking news.
Yeah, honestly, the Syrian civil war has been over for 6 months or so, but that's a minor thing compared to this. So I have a lot to say to this because race is one of my favorite topics for a number of reasons, particularly as a horse breeder. But jokes aside, if this is hurtful in two ways. If we're gonna have the Democrats, because we're not going to see the end of this. If we have the Democrats pushing race-based districts, say, well, why should blacks vote with whites, basically is what they're saying, then we're kind of acknowledging that blacks are a separate class in America. They're not part of America. They're kind of tacked on. That's essentially what they were trying to say. Or it's the opposite, to say, well, why should we blacks or we Hispanics vote with them whites? You know, it's dividing the country horrifically. We're supposed to be a nation where we actually come together on things. Yeah, we're different races. Yeah, races are different. Yeah, we get that. But politically, we're all supposed to be with each other, whether we like it or not, particularly if we don't like it. That's how the system works. And I think it's very good that the Supreme Court affirmed that, because the alternative is balkanization. We don't want that.
Yep. Well, there was another state that's been waiting on this ruling, and so it looks like it's going to open up a can of worms for the Democrats, because from what I understand now, there's at least two other southern states. One is Florida, where they are now going to move to redistrict properly, and it could add 5 seats to the Republican side of the aisle in the House. Louisiana was trying to kind of reverse, because Louisiana is an interesting state. It's I would say it's red, but it's not ruby red. And some of the Democrats have been making inroads into Republican control there. And so what they were trying to do is make this along basic racial lines so that they could gain some seats out of some of those districts down there in Louisiana. And the court said no.
And that's really sad, honestly, because Louisiana has a really strong history of whites and blacks working together. A lot of it is that French influence, the influence of the great Senator and Governor Huey Long, who'd probably be a Republican today. We all of these legacies of the Southern Democrats are being ripped apart by modern Democrats. So I have a quick question. Democrats, are you guys racist or not? Like you guys hate racism, or are you guys completely racist and believe that races should be segregated politically and socially? You're giving us mixed signals, guys. You need to be clearer. All we're asking for is clarity. That's all we're asking for.
Yep. And on some lighter news, we had a royal visit.
We did
at the White House and a state dinner. And I don't know if you got to watch any of it, but I watched a little bit of some of President Trump's speech, and also King Charles's speech, and he was quite witty. I mean,
Charles III is not a dumb man. He's not a peon. He's interested in representing his country. Hugo, I want to ask you: isn't it great for our country? We rebelled against George III. And now Charles III has come to our country to admire it and to speak well and to speak honorably of it. I think and on the 250th year, no less. I think this is a great moment of pride for our country.
Well, I want to comment on that in a minute. Let's first watch a little clip about the dinner that was kind of entertaining. And this is the king speaking at the dinner.
El Rey.
Indeed, you recently commented, Mr. President, that if it were not for the United States, European countries would be speaking German. Dare I say that if it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking French.
God forbid.
The story of Britain and America is one of reconciliation, from adversaries to the closest of allies, not always perhaps following the straightest path. As you said yourself, Mr. President, during your own state visit at Windsor Castle last year, ours is an unbreakable bond of history and heritage, culture and commerce, industry and invention, and we are determined to face the future together. Tonight, we are here to renew an indispensable alliance which has long been a cornerstone of prosperity and security for both British and American citizens. But it is not hard to see how important the relationship remains in matters both seen and unseen. My mother's first Prime Minister, Sir Winston Churchill, understood this so well. But then he himself was half American, a tradition of shared transatlantic heritage, which I am pleased to say is alive and well in the White House today. Indeed, such was the closeness that Sir Winston, while staying here in the White House, in those rooms you showed us upstairs, emerged naked from the bathtub to discover the door opening as President Roosevelt came in for a chat.
It's true.
With rapier wit, the President cast aside any embarrassment by declaring that the Prime Minister has nothing to conceal from the President of the United States.
Talk about the order of the bath.
Indeed, you recently commented, Mr. President, that if it were not for the United States, European countries would be speaking German. Dare I say that if it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking French.
Funny with some others.
Of course, we both love our French cousins greatly, and we three estates are not only bound by our shared values, but by a profound belief that together we are more than the sum of our parts.
We didn't learn the phrase, we surrender, though. We didn't adopt that from the French.
On this occasion, I cannot help noticing the readjustments to the East Wing, Mr. President, following your visit to Windsor Castle last year. And I'm sorry to say that we British, of course, made our own small attempt at real estate redevelopment of the White House in 1814. In just a few weeks, the United States and Canada will be among those to welcome the world as hosts of the FIFA World Cup. So in one sense, Mr. President, as heads of state, we are joint hosts. We call this game, by the way, football, Mr. President. And I can only say, as the head of state of 5 competing countries, I will be watching the matches closely and with great enthusiasm. After all, we always like favourable odds. Indeed, you recently commented, Mr. President.
Yes, that was great. There was a line by President Trump. I can't remember now what he had said, but he also had a pretty good joke. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
While you do that, it is awesome that the FIFA World Cup is coming to America. And that is Donald Trump's doing, by the way. Morocco was this close to bribing FIFA to get Morocco, to get them to host it. So thank God it's going to be here in the United States. Absolutely. But what a wit. And also for those historically unaware, what he was referring to is the British at one point burned down the White House. We rebuilt it. It was fine. We don't hold a grudge, but that did happen at one point. So that is what he's referring to. Canadians love to remind us of this.
Okay, I found it here. Let's take a quick peek at this because this was pretty good too.
Let us indeed.
All right, let's get up there. Come on, Mr. Producer, get that thing up there.
And we're doing a little Middle East work right now, too, if you might know. And we're doing very well. We have militarily defeated that particular opponent. And we're never going to let that opponent ever, Charles agrees with me, even more than I do, we're never going to let that opponent have a nuclear weapon. They know that. Today, most of Britain's former colonies have no idea what they truly owe to this towering legacy of law, liberty, and British custom that they were given. We were given that, and it was a great, great gift.
And may I also just start by paying tribute to your own courage and steadfastness, as well as to your security services, for their swift actions on Saturday evening in preventing further injury. Indeed, you recently commented, Mr. President, that if it were not for the United States, European countries would be speaking German. Orca's predecessor, in 1944, to the fourth submarines during the war. So tonight, Mr. President.
That's all right.
I thought I had the.
That's all right. But actually, I do like the opportunity to mention this because it's very important. This is not just the British being nice and friendly. The British Navy, as King Charles just mentioned, submarines. The British Navy currently has 10 submarines, only 2 aircraft carriers, only 6 destroyers and 7 frigates. The British Navy is at its lowest state probably since the English Civil War. And we see this in how much they wanted to help us on Iran, but literally could not. This is a very difficult time for Great Britain. And without America, it is very likely that Great Britain's security situation would be, to use a phrase, dead in the water. I mean, if the Argentines wanted to try to take over the Maldives, as what we know as the Falkland Islands, they could probably do it now if it wasn't for the United States saying, no, we don't want you to take over those islands. The British and Americans are going to need each other more than ever in the 21st century, especially as we move into the second quarter of the 21st century. And a lot of that is because the United States now rules the waves. And that's something we have to say. Also, again, Trump's father and grandfather spoke German. So I think it's amazing that there's this reconciliation, French, German, English, Polish, Spanish, Italian. All of the Western countries in the world are coming back together in a beautiful way. And I support it. I really support the unification of the West.
Well, I think getting to a serious point, and this is what President Trump had tried to impose upon the NATO nations. What they did, and this is something I also heard from Sean Hannity, and he's dead on right. He said the thing that really bothered me the most was how some of these NATO countries have acted in the wake of this Iran conflict, when they disallowed the United States from using their own bases in those countries.
Yeah, and sadly, Spain was actually the loudest and most vocal in that, very sadly.
Yep, and I think Spain is going to rue the day they pulled that stunt, because I think President Trump is going to pull the plug on Spain.
Very true. Although we should say it is the leftist government in Spain, the literal socialist government in Spain, that is responsible for this. And there is a strong right-wing nationalist movement, the Vox Party and many others in Spain, who are holding the line and trying to get their country back. So from the Hispanic Patriot podcast, we wish all Spanish patriots who love their country the best of luck in kicking out these leftists you-know-whats.
Well, I was in Spain last year, and or the year before last, I think. So, and I watched some of the local news and watched some of the papers, and just kind of listening in on some of the natives there talking, and it is an anti-American sentiment, that especially among some of the younger people, and I think that there was one newscast that I remember watching where it was one of the people that you were talking about that was from the right, and they were opposing these left-wing radicals, and to how they were disparaging the United States and doing things that were contrary to their best interest. So I really hope that some more common sense seeps into some of these countries, because, bottom line is, and I heard it the other day on one of the shows that I was watching. Without the United States, NATO is dead in the water, and we pay 2/3 of NATO's bill. And if we pull the plug on NATO, then they're going to rue the day that they did what they did against us. And I feel very disappointed, I think, especially in light of the fact that these people know what Iran is, at least what the regime is, not the Iranian people, because the Iranian people now want their freedom. And I'm hoping that movement continues, and that we arm those people, and that they are able to gain their freedom and their country back.
100%, and up to at least like 3/4 of Iranians actually don't want the regime that they have. And there's a quick misconception I want to clear up. The Iranian government, just because it's a religious government, that doesn't mean it's a right-wing government or a nationalist government. There is so many left-wing principles in the Iranian regime. There is even support for transgenderism in certain cultural senses. There's very messed up things going on there with things we won't get into. But these people are not nationalists who run Iran. These are not right-wingers who run Iran. The religion they follow is a kind of esoteric, kind of mystical religion. It's not like the Muslim terrorists that we've dealt with in the past. So when people say, oh, the Iranian regime wants what's best for their people, they really straight up don't. Like it's not the case at all. And again, it should be said again, the ruling party in Spain is literally called the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. So what else can you expect from these people?
Absolutely.
They're still bitter about losing the Spanish Civil War, I guess.
More to come. All right.
You lost, get over it.
We're coming up against the clock, so I want to make sure that we give a shout out to this event coming up.
Yes, you guys are not going to want to miss this.
Colorado Hispanic Republicans is hosting a chairman debate on May the 14th.
Here it is.
Yours truly is one of the moderators. And
I thought I saw a handsome man over there. Look at that.
And so there will be tacos. So
you just know you want the tacos.
Go to just RSVP by texting to that number on the screen there, and make sure that you pack the house, because I think this is going to be all the it says up here invited under Joe Altman, but I can say as of today that I heard it directly from him. He is confirmed. So I'm not sure about Mr. McCracken, who is from CD3. The first time I saw him was at the Weld County event last week.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we're crack-a-lacking.
I've never heard of the guy, to be honest with you. Nothing personal against him, but he didn't give me any kind of buzz as far as his ability to lead this party. So it's going to be a great event. Going to be hard-hitting questions, because I am known to not pull any punches.
You've all seen that on the show.
And I don't take any. I don't play favorites when it comes to that. So put this event on your calendar, folks. I think it's going to be a great one, and we'll hopefully have. We will have a new chairman on May the 30th, which is the announced special election for the state party chairman. So stay tuned,
indeed.
Watch what's going on. And of course, that's going to put us 30 days out from the primary vote. So which is also heating up. Some of the forums and debates for that. It appears that Mr. Marks is reneging on his promise to debate the candidates that are on the primary ballot.
What a shocker.
Those were his own words, folks. I'm not making that up. Look it up. It's verifiable. Before the assemblies, he was being asked, why aren't you debating some of these people? And he answered one of the people by saying, once the candidates are confirmed for the ballot on the primary ballot, I will debate the legitimate candidates. So now there's three of them. you've got Barbara Kirkmeyer, you've got Victor Marks, and you have Scott Bottoms. Those are your three gubernatorial candidates that are on the primary ballot for June 30th. And Mr. Marks, as of right now, refuses to debate anybody and claims scheduling conflicts and the fact that he's got some other things scheduled, which are either rallies or promo events for him. It has nothing to do with any kind of debates that I've seen. The one that comes the closest, I think, is the one at Colorado Christian University. It's listing several candidates on there, but that would be that's further out in the month of May. He's declined the one in Parker and a couple of others. So
yeah,
anyway,
and I've said this to numerous Republicans as sort of a last note. If you can't handle your fellow Republicans, the Democrats will eat you alive.
Yep.
But no one's eating us alive here on Hispanic Patriot Podcast, folks.
The music is playing. The music is playing. We're out of time, folks. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We appreciate you. Again, like, subscribe, and donate. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
God bless America, folks, and God bless Colorado.
God bless you.